we're really ready to carve out what things are supposed to look like for you now that you've got the right people in place and you understand the difference between pull and push. You can choose your marketing mix appropriately. Now it's time to actually put it together and make it of value to both you, the organization, and to your customers. And this is a piece that we took from segment 2, which is not having a plan is not an option. I don't care if you are a person with just you and maybe a bookkeeper. I don't care if you're a multi-billion-dollar organization. Regardless of the size of your business or regardless of your marketing budget, not having a plan is simply not an option and never has been an option. But we have a tendency as small business owners to duct tape things together and call it a plan. So today we're going to walk through those really critical elements that comprise a marketing plan. So we're going to take a sneak peek. Now, it's a little bit thick, so I'm going to do my best to kind of go through it slowly and only use language that makes sense, none of that jargon. For people who know me, they know that I'm really not into a bunch of jargon and buzzwords. I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to help you understand something to make your business stronger, to make it better, and to make it more profitable. So there are some key areas that exist within a traditional strategic marketing plan. And I do get into a little bit of trouble. So if anyone was listening before we started recording, you would have heard Tim and I talk about almost kind of the book smart versus street smart way of looking at a marketing plan. So I'm going to give you the traditional. I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth and call it the academic version, but I'm going to give you the traditional components because I do believe that there's a lot of worth and a lot of merit to understanding a marketing plan at its highest level, which is going to be that strategic approach. So here are those elements. It's going to include an executive summary, which is basically just a high-level summary of the marketing plan itself. It's usually a couple of paragraphs. You typically write it once your plan is done, so you actually do that summary piece at the end as opposed to in the beginning, but the order of how it falls into place is always at the beginning. Then the challenge. This is an area that trips people up sometimes because they're not really sure what to include in the challenge, but I tell people to just keep it simple. You're going to use a brief description of whatever your service or your product is, whatever it is that you're trying to market, what those goals are, and including the strategic goals, not just the product line or service line goals, and some sales figures. Now, in segment 2, we talked about the relationship between sales and marketing, and if there were ever a time where you really needed to understand why sales and marketing must live synergistically, it's when you write the challenge portion of your plan. When I sit down with executives and we talk about sales goals in relation to marketing strategies and what the overall plan is, I'm always amazed that there's never a salesperson that sits in the meeting, because you really can't create a high-level strategic plan that encapsulates all that is important to your approach to marketing without including the people who are ultimately responsible for execution. The company analysis part can sometimes trip people up, but it really isn't that complicated. You're going to want to put things in there like some additional high-level goals. We talked about big vision goals in segment 2, so they would be in there. You want to talk about the company culture as well as the culture that surrounds the industry that you're in. You want to also mix in there some strengths and some weaknesses of the company and of your product line or your service line. And if you have the information, which I always press to try to get the information, have some stats in there about market share, where you sit in terms of your market. Are you geography specific? Are you really more nationwide or international? And what does your percentage of share look like in that space? The customer analysis includes things like the decision process for your buyers. If you do not understand the decision process and the buying process of the people that you're trying to get to purchase your services or products, you're already in trouble. If you don't know, you need to speak to someone in your organization or on your team that manages the sales process. If you happen to be that person, then you really need to get the right people in your marketing mastermind, because if you are responsible for both your sales efforts and massaging your marketing pipeline, you have to have a really good understanding about what that decision process is for your buyers. You're also going to include the types of customers in that analysis, as well as your existing customer count and your projections, which I normally do as a percentage. The competitive analysis is where a lot of people have fun. Sometimes it can really pull your hair out, but I think it's kind of interesting to posture yourself against your competition and really figure out what the competitive advantages that your company has, or your service or your product. But you're going to include things like market share, again, some strengths and weaknesses, but your market position. Because even though you're in the same space and you might be considered competitors, everyone takes a certain position or tone, or I like to call it a posture in the industry. So you're going to want to include that in there as well. And then this particular segment rounds out with the cooperative analysis. In your marketing strategies in segment 2, we talked about collaboration as being a strategy. Well, here inside your strategic marketing plan, cooperative analysis is really going to include who would most likely share this space with you and would be an ideal company or an ideal complementary product or an ideal complementary service to actually boost sales for your service or product. So I want you to pay close attention to that, because that will allow you to look at some augmentation within your suite of services or your product line. And we can talk a little bit more about that when we go to the different phase. So I really like to divide the marketing plan into these two halves. All of the pieces of it that really require a tremendous amount of thought and hands-on information, statistical information, as well as just the analysis of why it is important, I put in this first half.